So carbohydrates are obviously like the primarily most sort of potent way to bring insulin down in a nutritional manner, right? But yeah, I think I really want to dial everyone's nutrition in now going into this year because um like you can train and train and train, but training only sets like the intention. There's only 1 hour of the day that you train. It only sets the intention for what your body actually wants to do. It's the other 23 hours in the day that is gonna like, create the progress and create the building blocks. So I really do want to dial in on the nutrition, sleep, and everything else that impacts, performance in the gym and even performance outside the gym, right? So the three things that we actually need to like the three things we want to get out of nutrition is we want to optimize our ability to burn fat, right? So optimize our fat oxidation. We want to be able to build and maintain lean body mass. So build lean muscle and maintain lean muscle, even when we're in a deficit or even when we're burning fat, right? And then we want to satisfy and suppress appetite. And that's a very, very important one. Um, because obviously I boxed my whole life. And this is genuinely like the only diet or the only way of eating that has ever not felt restrictive for me, right? And that's a really, really big thing because I've been like weighing in since I've been like 11 and probably on the verge of an eating disorder by the time I was 14 or 15. So to be able to actually go into like a so-called diet and be able to be restrictive and actually get leaner without having to think of food all the time is massive. So if you think like if people can actually achieve that, it's like this should be the last time that you ever actually have to diet, right? It's like the last time that you ever have to go into a restrictive way. You want to sort of go into this, be aware of how good you feel, and then you can actually sustain it for a lifetime, you know? And like I'm going to talk about high carb diets, low carb diets, keto diets, but really what we want to do is we want to find the sweet spot between like results and sustainability. So, you could go to keto diet, right? Oh yeah, fuck, I'm getting really, really good results, I feel really, really good, but I need fucking some white pasta or I'm gonna fucking kill someone, which is that's it's not sustainable then. Or else you could go high carb, right? This is someone who could be like a high insulin stimulator. I'm gonna get into insulin. Someone who's like a high insulin state stimulator, you could go into like a high carb diet and um yeah, it's really sustainable. They're eating fucking potatoes, pasta, and they're fucking eating loads of carbs and it's great. They're loving it, load of butter on top of it, but they're not getting any results. So we need to find that sweet spot between results and sustainability, right?
Hmm.
So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the calorie deficit model and why and where it fails. All right? Has anyone ever read the book Obesity Code? No? Did I give you that book, King?
No, no, I've just got the Diary of a CEO. I finished that there, but I haven't got the obesity one.
All right, this is good. It's good. It's sort of talks about this as well as Colin talks about it too. But um, the calorie deficit model, in my opinion, it works for maybe like younger people. You know, like you can find like it's sort of like a craze now that everything's fucking calories in, calories out. Sean Casey, calories in, calories out. That's all that matters. Yes, maybe it is important, right? But the way in which you set it up is very, very important, right? Because the calorie deficit model, it assumes that all the weight that is lost comes from your internal fat storage, right? But something that we need to understand is that whatever we fuel our body with is basically an instruction on how we want our body to run, right? So if we give our body carbohydrate, we want the body to run on carbohydrate. If we give our body fat, we want the body to run on fat, right? So if you're eating a lot of refined carbohydrates, but you're in a calorie deficit, the body doesn't just switch to start burning fat, it takes it from that carb tank, and that carb tank is always situated in your muscles or else your liver, right? So the calorie deficit model always just assumes that the calorie or the deficit will come from your fat store, but that's not the case, especially if you're high insulin stimulator. Um, so yeah, the really important thing that we need to think of here is that whatever we give our body to eat, whatever we give our body to eat, like a carbohydrate or fat, that is what we want our body to fuel or to run on, right? So we give our body carbs, it runs on carbs. We give our body fat, it runs on fat. right? So when we're talking about a calorie deficit, yes, it is important to be in a calorie deficit, but what we really, really want to focus on is how or where that fat or where that deficit comes from, right? So the quality of that weight loss, we want that to come from our fat storage, right? But there's one thing that's going to stop us from being able to burn fat, and that's insulin, right? Have you
Hmm.
heard me harp on about insulin? Have you heard me harp on about insulin yet, Chris?
Oh
Hello?
yeah, you're always hopping on about insulin, like.
I love it.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, but I suppose, like, yeah, I've been learning about it, but I've actually been living it for the past sort of year or so to actually understand that it does work, right? So, insulin is basically a hormone that is produced in order to get glucose out of your blood, right? There's three different words for carbohydrate here. I just want to actually simplify this first, right? The carbohydrate is basically just a fancy word for sugar, right? Glucose is also just a fancy word for sugar. So I'm just going to use sugar, right?
Sound good?
So insulin is produced in order to get sugar out of the bloodstream and move it to the muscles or liver in order to be used for fuel, right? It's also really, really important because it blocks our fat reserves. So insulin is basically like, say, like a gut, right? We have our fat reserves, right? There's a door to our fat reserves. Insulin is like a guard to that fat reserves. Reason being is too busy having to deal with all the glucose and use that as fuel that the fat reserve is then neglected, right? This is really, really important because when it comes to fat loss, when it comes to weight loss, we really want to focus on fat loss. We don't want to just focus on weight loss because we could lose 5 kilo, but 5 kilo of that could come from your bicep, right? We want it to come from our fat stores. We want to make sure we're optimizing our ability to burn fat. So what we need to do is bring insulin down, right? So insulin comes in, right? It's produced. If sugar comes into the bloodstream, insulin is then produced. It's produced to take the sugar out of the bloodstream, take it to the muscles or liver, and then be used as fuel, right? So, um, insulin's like it's sort of like alcohol, right? Like you build up a tolerance for insulin. So like the first time you were ever introduced to insulin, you might have had like a piece of white bread when you were 2 or 3 years of age. Insulin just rose quickly, dealt with the sugar that came in, and that was it. Done. Went back down, right? That means you're sensitive to insulin. That means it's potent and it works well, right? But then over time, you get more and more and more and more, and then you become tolerant to insulin, right? So insulin keeps having to there's more insulin has to come in to deal with the sugar and take it out. More insulin has to come in to deal with the sugar and take it out, but then insulin doesn't drop like it used to, right? There's only so much insulin that your body can actually produce. That's why then you have like type 2 diabetics that have become really insulin resistant. Then they have to start shooting themselves up with insulin to get the rest of the blood sugar or rest of the glucose out of their blood, rest of the sugar out of your blood, right? So when that happens, right? Remember that there's just like one guard sort of, you know, guarding the door of our fat reserves. But the more and
Hmm.
more we stimulate insulin, so we stimulate insulin until we become really resistant to insulin. It means that the guards have just shut off our fat reserves. We just can't access them, right? And another really, really important thing here is we have like two tanks of storage, right? One of them is our carbohydrate tank, and one of them is our fat tank, right? Our fat tank is technically unlimited. It's our internal storage and it can be stored anywhere in the body. Our carbohydrate tank can only be stored on an average human up to 500 grams, right? So that's 2000 calories, say, of energy can be stored at one time in our carb tank, right? Now, people that are insulin resistant, so people that have excessively stimulated insulin for a very long time, usually have a really, really full carb tank because their body goes into a wee bit of fight or flight mode and keeps that full, right? I'm going off on a tangent here. If anyone doesn't understand anything, please shout. But if people are excessively stimulating insulin and then they become resistant to insulin, their carb tank is usually full. So when this insulin comes in and it tries to use or take this glucose away or tries to take this carbohydrate out of the blood, store it in the carb tank, there's no room. So what do you think happens to this sugar that comes into the bloodstream? It has to get stored somewhere or another. It gets stored as fat, right? So then it gets stored as fat. So the carb tank's full. People are insulin resistant. Every time carbohydrates now come in, or anytime refined carbohydrates come in, it gets stored as fat, right? And there's a pretty like pretty mad thing in that obesity code that I noticed when I was reading it as well, right? So like carbohydrates, or see calories. Calories are just basically calorie is just a word for energy, right? Calories just an energy, so 1 unit of energy. So carbohydrates have a 1 gram of carbohydrates have 4 calories, so 4 units of energy. 1 gram of protein has 4 units of energy, but fat has nine. So 1 gram of fat has 9 units of energy, right? So the American Heart Association in the 1970s gave out this nutrition advice that um low fat diets, because they're so expensive in energy, that low fat diets are sort of now the way forward, because we can eat more volume of food, right? So the whole thing was, right, we're going to go into this low fat diet. So everyone was like, do you remember like the fucking eat well plates were like, 70% rice, 70% pasta, 70%, like it was just all fucking carbohydrates.
It was like the food pyramid.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
If you go and look at 1970s, exactly when that advice was given out, obesity levels have just went like skyrocketed. And the reason being is because people have or have stimulated insulin to such a high level that it now doesn't even work. So every time they're eating, it's just getting stored as fat, stored as fat, stored as fat, stored as fat. This obesity does happen over time, but it happens because it's causing a hormonal imbalance in insulin, right? So the way we want to actually access our fat reserves, the way we want to sort of become, instead of being like a carbohydrate burner, we want to become a fat burner, right? So we want to be able to take this insulin down, right? We want to be able to take the insulin down so we can open the door to the fat reserve, right? So remember, stimulate insulin, we shut the door to the fat reserves. Take insulin down, we're going to open the door to the fat reserves, right? So there's ways in which we can lower this insulin so that we can actually achieve weight loss in a really, really healthy way and a really, really effective way. We want to be able to bring insulin down. So the primary way to do it in a nutritional manner is to, I want to say, stop eating refined carbohydrates, but look at the quality and the quantity of refined or carbohydrates as a whole, right? Um, so you've got like you've sort of got different people that are going to be in different stages here. You've got high insulin stimulators, and then you've got low insulin stimulators. Low insulin stimulators can probably stick them on a calorie deficit, they'll lose a bit of weight, that's dead on. High insulin stimulators are probably going to be a wee bit trickier, right? They might have stimulated insulin a wee bit too much that they need some sort of insulin lower strategies, maybe aggressive insulin lowering strategies, so that they can access their fat storage and then be able to maintain weight loss and do it in an effective way. Um, but yeah, refined carbohydrates are the main one. The reason being because obviously it directly dumps sugar into your bloodstream and causes a massive spike in insulin. So it causes like a direct spike in insulin from the sugar in your bloodstream, right? So we have to look at the quality and quantity of carbohydrates. That's the first thing we need to do in order to achieve fat loss, right? So this is why I always say, switch from brown to white. I know you eat a lot of brown carbohydrate anyway, Chris, don't you? So,
Yeah, and I think I'm starting to like eat less of it anyway.
yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I've noticed I have to have a lot of leftover rice at the
Yeah.
time now anyway. So
The thing about brown rice, it takes ages to fucking cook.
yeah, it's not so bad now. Actually, I think I've just gotten accustomed to it.
Yeah, 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 that will.
Yeah,
Like the first thing, like the first stage in anyone's sort of like, right, we're gonna get a wee bit healthier, get a wee bit fitter. It's like the first thing you should do really is just eat real food, right? So if you take it back to carbohydrate, it's just eating whole sources of carbohydrate. What that does, right? You've got simple carbs, which is like simple sugars, and then you've got complex carb, which is like complex sugars, right? Remember, carbohydrates is just a fancy word for sugar. So simple carbs, or actually go complex carbs first. They're basically like wee balls, right? And they're just like stuck together. within. I actually need to get an iPad so I can get like a whiteboard up, so I'm really, really cool if I do this here.
You
You
could
know,
actually whiteboard on this, I think.
yeah, I think you can do that. But anyway, yeah, I think you can do like screen share, or I don't know if someone does it anyway that I've seen, but anyway, we got it. Give me in a month or so. But anyway, you've got complex, right? Complex sugars are like stuck together, right? So these need to be broken down and then they drip feed into your bloodstream. And then insulin comes in small amounts and takes it out to be used as fuel, right? Then you've got your simple carbohydrates, which is your refined carbohydrates that are already broken down. They're already broken into their single molecules and they're just quickly dumped into the bloodstream. Insulin quickly rises and then it's taken out, right? Now the problem is with a high insulin stimulator, it quickly rises and it doesn't come back down. Blocks the door to the fat reserve, right? Then we're fucked. Don't record that.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's the first thing we need to look at is obviously carbohydrates, right? Because of that insulin, because of what it does to insulin, right? We need to look at carbohydrates so that we can then access our fat storage and be able to maintain fat loss or to be able to target fat loss instead of just weight loss, right? Now there's a few other things, right? I'm going to sort of talk about like being carb adapted and being fat adapted. So I said earlier, obviously, that whatever you eat is just an instruction on what you want your body to actually run on. So you fill your body full of carbohydrate, it just runs on carbohydrate. You fill your body full of fat, it will run on fat. I know it's paradoxical, but if you eat fat, you actually get lean. But as I said, right, your carb tank is sort of it only holds about 2,000 calories of energy, right? The average person, that's about a day worth of energy. Um, so people that are completely carb adapted, right, will sort of fatigue a lot quicker. They will get like a lot more bouts up and down with their appetite. They will hit more slumps in the afternoon, and their brain will always be crying out that they need more glucose or they need more sugar because the brain is 100% adapted to it. Now, on the flip side, your fat storage makes up to about 50 to 100,000 calories of energy. So that could be 50 days worth of energy for someone, right? Without having to eat if you
Mm-hmm.
were fat adapted, right? So the only way you can really get fat adapted is to bring insulin down and be able to access them fat reserves, right? Um, really potent way to do it is keto, obviously. I was obviously low carb there for about 6 months, maybe longer. Well, about 6 months with a bit of fasting as well. But you want to really be able to bring insulin down, right? And you want to be able to you want to eat more fats basically, right? You want to replace carbs with fats, right? And then it's vice versa. If you were to take fats away, you would replace it with carbs, right? They can sort of work in tandem, right? But if you want to take your carbs down, you have to up your fat intake, right? As I said, fat is worth 9 calories of energy, or carb is worth 4 calories of energy. So fat actually has a lot more energy. And another thing it does, it satisfies and suppresses your appetite a lot. Reason being, your brain is if you're carb adapted, your brain is 100% dependent on glucose, right? Carbohydrate gets turned into glucose to be used for fuel, right? So if you're 100% carb adapted, your brain will 100% run on glucose, right? Now, this is a really, really cool way on how it actually kills appetite or suppresses your appetite. So your brain is 100% dependent on glucose, right? You give your brain glucose, you give your brain sugar. It's like, fuck, right, I feel good now. That's good, We've been the appetite's been suppressed. I've got fed. But what happens is it comes right down, right? Your appetite comes back down, but it actually goes lower to where it had started, right? And then the brain's in fight or flight mode. It's like, fuck, I'm hungry, I need sugar. I'm getting cravings, you need food, and then you satisfied, suppress it. Satisfied, suppress it, right? This is what happens to your brain when you're 100% dependent on glucose. Now, if you're fat adapted, if you're fat adapted, your brain actually runs 2/3 on your internal fat storage, right? And the other 1/3 is on glucose, but that glucose is actually made in your body through something called gluconeogenesis, something in Latin. about creating new sugar. But anyway, so if you're fat adapted, your brain can actually switch over to only needing its own internal storage to be able to run, right? So there's no more external cues in order to actually have cravings. You don't crave any more glucose because you're already creating it within your own body. So this is how you satisfy and suppress your appetite. When you become fat adapted by bringing insulin down and being able to access your fat reserves, your brain can adapt. Your brain becomes more inclined to run on its own internal fat storage, and then you satisfy and suppress your appetite, right? And I know this myself because I lived and breathed it before Christmas. If you eat a steak and eggs at lunchtime, I know you don't eat steak, Chris, but for anyone else who's watching this after, right? If you eat a steak and eggs at lunchtime, I'm telling you now, you'll not eat till about 8 o'clock because you filled yourself full of fat and protein and you
Mhm.
have glucose and you're not crying out for it, right? So, yeah, is that confusing?
No, I think it makes sense for me, anyways.
Is there any
Yeah, no, that was all good.
Is there any questions before I
You
go
should
into?
have been.
I'm
Oh,
just quickly go over the guides here, just for anyone that is doing these guides. A few wee tips for keto diets and stuff like. Is there any questions? Please ask a question.
I think we're all good with questions, are we?
No more questions. No questions.
No,
No,
I
you've
think we're
explained it very
alright.
well.
So did I explain it well then?
I,
Yeah.
under- I
Has to,
understand it.
has to be one question. There has to be.
How
Insulin.
do you know how much to eat
In terms of what?
in terms of, say, a meal? Like, how would you plan out like the size of a meal?
So I would just control your carbohydrate portion.
Right.
Reason being, it's very hard to overeat on fat or protein. It's very easy to overeat in carbohydrate.
Yeah, get you. So how many? Like, what would be like the carbohydrate sort of
See that
um line?
the size of your fist once cooked.
Right. Okay.
That's what you want, right? Your carbohydrate portion to be the size of your fist once cooked. Now, I'm saying that it's very easy, or not, it's very hard to overeat in protein. Your protein is the only sort of macronutrient that actually follows a strict guideline. Now, a lot of people do like, protein targets for the day. But your protein or your body can only metabolize between 20 to 40 Oh, how long do I have here? Fuck's
What's
sake.
that? What's it saying?
Running out of time.
Oh, you probably have like 10 minutes, but you could just shut it down and open it up again.
Right, right. I just want to go through the guides quickly. I'll not even be that long, but anyway. Yeah. Protein is only the one that really actually follows a strict guideline, and that is that you should probably be eating between 20 to 40 grams of protein per meal, right? A lot of people say you should have a protein target per day, but you're not going to sit down and have 100 grams of protein in one meal. Now, there is studies saying that can be true, and then there's more studies that saying that's debunked, and no one knows what the fuck, right? But what I've learned is that you can only metabolize 40 grams of protein every 3 hours, right? So 40 grams of protein per meal. So you sort of want to stick with like, right, your protein is between 20 to 40 grams, and then your carbohydrate is going to be the size of your fist once it's cooked, right? Other than that, like, it's really, really difficult to overeat in fats unless you're eating fucking loads of nuts. Really hard to overeat on, you know? But in terms of like eggs, in terms of like steaks, in terms of avocado, in terms of like oils and stuff, like it's difficult to overeat. It keeps you very satiated, protein keeps you very satiated. So I would control the carbohydrate size just for the size of your fist. And you switch.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is that it? Anyone else? Anything else?
Um, I think that's really it for me, anyways.
Chris, do you know what guide? Are you following a guide or are you
I think I'll probably do the low carb one, and then maybe transition into the keto one. But keto is way too much for me right now. So maybe I'll see how I get on with the low carb one after a few months.
Yeah, you need to be in a do you know what? I was supposed to do keto and I was like, fuck, I don't know if I'm in the mindset to do keto right now. Like,
Yeah.
probably have your mentality, you know what I mean? I'm like, fuck. But I was low carb, right? I was low carb there before Christmas, and the biggest benefit of low carb is, right, you might still get into a state of ketosis, right? You will still feel all the benefits of being in keto, right? But see, when you're keto, like, and especially when your blood sugar is really, really low, so when you bring insulin really low, your adrenaline is actually really, really high. So like your focus and your alert, your focus is really high, your alertness is really high, but you obviously don't want that at nighttime. So when you're on a keto diet, it can be really, really difficult to actually fucking go to sleep, you know? So with the low carb one, right? You want to like have a low carb meal in the morning, have a low carb meal in the afternoon, and then your sort of your evening or your dinner time is when you want to actually have carbs, just so you can sort of, take the adrenaline down a wee bit and actually just get to sleep, you know? You
Hmm.
hear
Yeah,
me? But with a low carb, it's like, your meals want to follow all the same structure, right? So you've got protein, fat, veg, right? That's going to be low carb. So breakfast, protein, fat, veg, right? So an easy one is like, for most breakfasts, people might have like toast, eggs, tomatoes, bit of bacon, just take the toast away, make an omelet, right? There's your low carb meal number one, right? Um, I know with yourself, Chris, you're obviously vegetarian, but you can just load it up in veg.
yeah.
You want to sort of be loading it up on like sort of crunchy veg, right? Sometimes when you become low carb, you might have issues with fiber, so you need to really, really focus on getting your fiber in, right? So you want to sort of go to crunchy veg, which is going to give you fiber, so you don't have any sort of digestive issues. And then you might also get muscle cramps. This is something I actually experienced there before Christmas. You might get muscle cramps because you can sometimes be depleted in magnesium, because you sort of dump a lot of salt and stuff in your low carb, right? So you want to actually, let me start on you. You want to sort of try and, what's the word? Try and not factor that. I don't know the word, but you want to just start eating leafy greens, right? So that you're getting magnesium. Now, if that
Yeah.
fails, well, then you can just start to supplement magnesium. Another really important thing with low carb, right? Especially the first like week, the first week you need to have like SIS electrolytes. So you want to get your electrolytes in, because when you start to go low carb, right, you start to lower insulin, you start to dump salt, right? So you want to just sort of metabolize that by just drinking a couple of electrolyte tablets throughout the day, right? And what I recommend is just having one in the morning, so 500 ml with an electrolyte tab, drink it in the morning. You can drink like 500 mils over an hour, just sip away at it. And then say like mid-afternoon, instead of having like a mid-afternoon snack, just have an electrolyte. And then because you lose about 2 to 3 grams of salt when you go keto or low carb, right? So you want to just replace that. One electrolyte tab has 1 gram of salt, and then you want to start putting sea salt on your food as well, right? But what you can do is like, see all them recipes and all that I sent you. It's just so many of them are low carb,
Yeah.
And then once you incorporate carb into your evening meal, it's just one whole source of carb, size of your fist once cooked, and then you're flat. So yeah.
Okay.
Have you any other questions on low carb?
Mm, no, I think we should be all right there.
But yeah, I don't know carb. So see if you have any questions throughout it, just give me a shout and I will
Yeah.
provide you. It's probably what I'm gonna go back to other than keto, because like see your mental cognition when you're low carb, it's unbelievable. And like see even like emotional control and everything, I was like fucking I felt on top of my game, like, on top
Oh,
of
definitely. Yeah.
so that when I was low carb. So it's I think you want to sort of focus on how you're feeling. That should be the main thing when it comes to your nutrition. Like, it's how you're feeling. See everything else, like aesthetics and everything else, that will all just take its place. But focus on how you're feeling, and then everything else will come. Um But yeah, so that's low carb. High carb is basically just eat real food, right?
Right.
Anyone that wants to go high carb, for anyone that's listening in, anyone that wants to go high carb is just switch your white carbs to brown, right? And then make sure the portion size is the size of your fist. And anyone that's eating snacks or anything, your snacks really want to sort of focus on protein and fats, right? So you've got like yogurts and whey protein or whatever it is. And that can be your snack with berries, whatever. And then the performance guideline is just the performance guideline is mostly important for the timeline, right? So you want to have your carb tank full for when you're training. If you're training in the morning times, your carb meal in the evening will equate or will be enough to keep the carb tank full for the morning. But if you're training in the morning times, it's very important to be hydrated, right? You're in a very dehydrated state in the morning, so you want to be hydrated. You want to, same again, drink a electrolyte tab about an hour before training, right? It's very, very important. Um, and then you can have caffeine about 45 minutes before training. Now, the only issue I have is if I drink a 500 ml tab and drink a cup of coffee, then I'm fucking having to go for a piss all the time, especially when you're low carb. That's an issue. Um, so you want to be hydrated in the morning, especially if you're looking for performance. So electrolyte tab and then drink water throughout your training. I would recommend whey protein directly after training for everyone because it metabolizes very quickly. So take whey protein, it digests rapidly and then metabolizes very quickly. So it's you're getting like that protein hit straight away, right? There's one thing about like building muscle is you're trying to hit muscle protein synthesis and you're trying to hit that button every hour, every 3 hours, sorry. But you want to hit that button directly after training. Eat a full meal an hour after it with carbohydrates and protein. This is for performance, by the way, Chris, right? So after that whey protein, an hour after training, you want to have carbohydrates and a protein based meal just so we're sort of filling that carb tank up and then we're getting our protein again. And then you want to hit that muscle protein synthesis button every 3 hours from the training, right? That is basically your performance. Now the quality and quantity of protein is 20 to 40 grams per meal, and you want it to have essential amino acids, right? Essential amino acids, I'm sorry, Chris, are found in red meat and poultry and the likes of that. Now, Chris, you can obviously go for like tofu, cheeses, whey protein. There's loads of other ways you can get protein in. Supplements are a very good one. Um, but yes, it's really easy. It's not just all calories in, calories out, folks. You know, calories are just going to record it. Insulin lowering strategies, that is what we want to achieve. We don't want to achieve a low calorie state. This is for fat loss, by the way. We want to achieve a low insulin state, right? This is just the first thing. Refined carbohydrates is it's just one way on how we can actually lower insulin. We can do it through protein, we can do it through stress management, we can do it through gut health, we can do it through intermittent fasting, we can do it through exercise, high intensity exercise. We can do it through, what's that, six? Alcohol. And that is it. Alcohol is a big one. But
Makes
refined
sense.
carbohydrates is probably the
Would
main,
that probably be the best one then?
it's probably the most potent way to lower insulin, right?
Right.
Most potent way to lower insulin is to go on a ketogenic diet while you're fasting.
Right.
So like the likes of Tommy there, Tommy, you know Tommy that trains in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tommy was very, very low carb before Christmas. So he was like low carb, but he was fasting as well. So he had one low carb meal and then he had one carb meal. He was actually making headway to be fair. He was making progress, but Tommy's sleep is not the best. He's got sleep apnea. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he's got sleep apnea. Um, so what that does basically, it rises your cortisol levels like really, really high, your stress levels, which wreaks like inflammation in your body. And then there's this
Mm-hmm.
like there's this sort of tandem with inflammation and insulin. Inflammation rises, insulin rises, insulin rises, inflammation rises, and it's just like this fucking never ending, you know. So as much as Tommy, like he's really low carb, um, he exercises a lot, but because his sleep's not good, you know, he's still a high insulin stimulator. So yeah, he might have sorted out his carbohydrate side of things, but he's still got, you know, right, what's the next thing? Sleep. He still has that to sort of deal with, you know, it's still another factor that we need to take in so that we can actually really get a good result, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get on to probably sleep the next time, but I'll maybe do this in the weekend. Sunday morning at 7:30.
Half 10. How about
Ah!
that? Half 10.
But yeah, I want to do these more often. I want to sort of, I want to educate people a wee bit more just because like people aren't going to fucking stay in the gym forever, you know. People are going to go off and do their own things. So I want to be able to maybe like equip them that they can go on and do things on their own if the time ever comes. I hope it never comes, but if they ever do. Right?
Well, enough education. I'm sure they won't.
I don't know. PT and science.
That's it.
PT and biology. Is it biology?
I would say so.
Nice. Right, I need to go get a fucking birthday cake. I have to go have a birthday party because I'm missing it from my son.
I know. What are you going to get then? A wee caterpillar or what?
No, I don't think I'll be able to get one at that time. At this time. I don't know what the crack on my flight is tomorrow. Like Manchester Airport is closed.
You could be well as not going, maybe.
Ah, fuck up.
You want to go, do
It'll be too much to learn. Like.
you? True.
Too much to learn. Like. The boy I know, the boy that's taking it, like he's very good.
Fair
So
enough then. Well, hopefully you get sorted.
hopefully, and hopefully the painter's in tomorrow too. He rang me earlier.
Sure. What time's he coming on at?